Hi, my name's Stuart Lynch. In this video, I'd like to show you how you can replace these standard SwiftUI TabBars with a custom one of your own. Now, I'm not talking about creating your own TabView system. I'm just going to show you how you can replace and possibly improve the standard TabBars used in iOS and on iPadOS. And it might even solve some problems that you might have if you have more than 5 tabs, or if you don't like the new iPad TabBar introduced in iPadOS 18. I love getting your feedback, so tap the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video and leave me a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and ring that bell to get notifications whenever I release a new video. And if you want to support my work, you can buy me a coffee. A link is in the description. There is a starter project for this video, and you can download it from the link in the description. There are 3 different branches in this repository, and the one that you want is the Enum TabViews complete branch. And that contains the completed source code from the first video where we built out the initial Enum-driven TabView system. The CustomTabBar's complete branch is there as well, and that will contain the completed source code for this video. So make sure you download the zip file for the Enum TabViews complete branch. Now, if you've not watched the first video where I built out the Enum-driven TabViews, I'd recommend that you start there, as this way of creating a TabView may not be that familiar to you. I'm going to leave a link in the description. Just as a quick overview then, this is a TabView and tabs that display 5 different views. The shopping cart view also has a modal sheet presented from the toolbar button that passes in a binding to an int where we can update the cart. And that purchase view screen also has a button that uses an observable router class to allow us to return directly to the home tab. All of this is driven by a router class. And the tab item struct and the TabView enum. And this is all covered in the previous video. What we want to do in this video is replace the tab bar that you see here with 3 different custom tab bars. Of course, only one at a time, so we'll start with the simplest version. So for our first custom tab bar, I want to create a new folder called CustomTabBars. And then inside there, I want to create a SwiftUI file and call it CustomTabBar. We're going to have to track the current selected tab as a binding, so create a binding for that as an TabView enum. Then we'll need to fix the preview. And I can use a previewable macro here to create a preview state property called selected tab. And I'm going to assign the first one, which is the home case. And then I can use that in my preview for our custom tab bar's selected tab binding. So let's replace the content of the body with an H stack. Inside there, I'm going to create a for each loop to loop over the array created from the TabView enum all cases to get a tab view as an iterator. Now what I want to do for each case is to create a button that is a circle using the system image that we defined for our original tab view. So first a button, and I'm going to leave the action as is for now. For the label, I'm going to start with an image using the TabViews tab item system image. I'll set the font to a system size of 18. I'll make it bold. I'll apply some padding. And then I'll set a frame with a width of 40. And apply a foreground style of white. Next, we'll need to add a background to each of these images. Now, I'd like each of them to have a different color. However, so this is where our tab item struct comes in. I can return to that struct and add another property for color. But that means we'll have to change the import to SwiftUI. And now I can add the color property. Now this, of course, will break our tab items computed property in our TabViews enum, but we can add one in and choose a different color for each of the cases. I'm going to leave it up to you as to what colors you want to use, but I'm going to use blue, purple, red, green, and orange for mine. Well, I can return now to the custom tab bar, and you can specify that the background color is the TabView tab item color property. And this will form a rectangle with a fixed width of 40, but the heights are different because of the different heights for the different system images. That's okay because we're going to fit this background in a circle. Now they're all uniform. Well, I like to know which one is the current selected one. So I can change the color if the selected tab is equal to the current tab view. And that's the one that we're iterating over. So gray if that's the case. Otherwise, we'll use the specified color. And also, I might as well disable the button if the selected one is the current one. Well, for the action then, we can use a with animation block to smoothly transition to that particular tab by assigning a tab view to the selected tab. Well, you can see the effect of that change of the color as we select a different tab. Implementing the custom tab bar is actually pretty easy. Let's return to our Start tab now, and I want to add a new modifier to the view in the tab, which is our tab view here. And this is the toolbar visibility modifier, and we're going to specify hidden for the tab bar. And this will hide each of the different tabs. Next, I'm going to add a safe area inset for the bottom edge of the tab view. And then inside that inset, I'm going to present that custom tab bar. Passing in the router's selected tab as the binding to the custom tab view selected tab. Now we have our new custom tab bar. So let's take a look at how this looks on an iPad. I can see that the new tab bar at the top is removed, and if I reduce the magnification for our preview, I see the new one is at the bottom. It all works now. Let's do some more testing by adding a sixth tab. Because on an iPhone, if there are more than 5 tabs, that fifth tab turns into a More button, and then will show you a list of all the subsequent tabs. So in the Tabs View folder, let's create a new view and just call it FAQ. And I'll just leave it all, except I'm just going to change the view to display the string FAQs. And then to be consistent, I'll add 6 to the file name. Now I'm going to go back to the TabView enum and add a new case called FAQ. I'll add an FAQ case to the tab item's computed property. And I'll use the name FAQ. For the system image, though, I'll use a question mark. And for the color, I'll just choose teal. So for the body, we'll need an FAQ case. And in that case, we'll present the FAQ view. Pretty straightforward adding new tabs. While we're still displaying the iPad in the preview and things still look pretty good here, we still see all of our buttons along the bottom. Let's switch back to the iPhone. And unfortunately, things aren't that great. The 5th and 6th tabs now, though, show a More navigation backbar button. When I tap on it, it returns and shows me a list displaying the 5th and 6th tabs. And that's definitely not necessary because we see all 6 tabs in our custom tab bar. So what do I need to do for my custom tab bar? Well, I have to hide that More button. And I struggled with this, and I did some research to find out what I could do. And fortunately, there are smarter devs than I, and one in particular that I rely on is KavSoft. I'm a patron of his and support him on Patreon. He created a video called Removing the More button from the tab bar in SwiftUI. Perfect. I'm going to leave a link in the description, and I encourage you to watch that video. And you could watch it and copy the code that he types in. or you can visit a gist that I have prepared for you that contains that relevant code. Since I'm a Patreon for his account, I have access to that code, and I reached out to him to ask if I could share the code in my video, and he graciously permitted me to do this. I really do encourage you to follow his channel, as his content is over the top and creative. So here's the Remove More button gist. It's a complete Swift file, so you can simply just download the zipped file. Now, if you're using Safari, it will automatically unzip it. So if you display the location, you can copy it directly here to drag it into your project. And you can see that it's a UI view workaround with a UI view representable. And you should watch KavSoft's video to learn how this works. I'm just going to leave it up to you. The implementation, however, is very simple. What I need to do is first, in our Start tab view, create a new state property that is a Boolean that I'll call isHidden, and I'll initialize it as false. And then, right after we applied our toolbar visibility button, we can also apply a background that has a closure. Within the closure, we can check to see if isHidden is not true, so if not is hidden. And then we can apply the Remove More button that has a result closure. And then within the result closure, we can then set the isHidden value to true. Now you see it's working perfectly on the iPhone. The More button no longer appears. And even though this isn't necessary for iPadOS, we can leave it because the More button is not displayed there anyway. So all is good. Well, that's a pretty boring button bar, so I thought that I'd play around and create a couple of different ones that might give you some inspiration. So this is what I'm aiming for. I want to display the current tab in a button, but when I tap on it, the other tab bars will splay out in a semicircle, and then tapping on one will switch me to that current tab. So in the CustomTabBars folder, I'm going to create a new SwiftUI file and call it SemiCircular TabBar, or just SemiCircular TabBar. We're going to start the same way as we did our CustomTabBar by creating a binding to the selected tab. And then we can fix the preview by adding a previewable state object that we can use in our preview. And again, we'll display the home as the default. So let's replace the content of the body with an Z stack so that all of our buttons are tab items on top of each other. And this will be the same button that I use in the custom tab view. But for this, I'm going to have to know what the index is in the array so that I can create an offset angle to display the button. So first, let's create an all tabs variable that is the TabViews enum all cases array. And then I can use a for each loop on the all tabs indices with an ID of self, and that gets me the index. And then I can create a TabView variable that is the TabView enum at the index of that all cases array. So now I can go back to my custom tab view now and copy that button and then paste it into my loop. It looks like I have an extra parentheses. So I see that we have all of our buttons stacked on top of each other, but I also want to overlay a button of the selected tab over top of these so that when I click on it, it's going to expand the ones behind it into a semicircle. So I'm going to copy that button and paste it in here and make the necessary changes. This is going to put it in front. So I'm going to remove the action. The image then, the one in front, is going to be the selected tabs tab item system image. And the background will be the selected tabs tab item color. And I also want to increase the font size and frame. So I'm going to change the font size to a size of 24 and I'll set the frame to 60. So the selected one's in front and all the other ones are stacked behind and slightly smaller. But also I'll apply a shadow of a color black with an opacity of 0.3 and a radius of 5, spanning 0 in the X direction, but 5 in the Y direction. And now for the action, when I tap on this button, I want the ones behind to flare out in a semicircle. So I'll need a Boolean state property that I can toggle. So back up at the top, I'm going to create that state property and I'm going to call it isExpanded, and I'll initialize it as false. And then in the action for that front button, I can toggle it. Well, I have a degree in mathematics, and I think I could work this out for myself, but sometimes there's an easier way to get code if you know what you're looking for. And I do, so I asked ChatGPT, and this is what it came up with, and I think it works fairly well. I need to create a function that I'm going to call angle for tab button at an index, which is an int, and I'll need to know the total number of tabs because that can change, and it's also an int. And it's going to return an angle that I can use to specify the X and Y offset. So first I'll check to see if the total number of tabs is greater than 1. Otherwise, I'm going to just return a minus 90 degrees. Now the total arc is just a semicircle. So it's a double, and it's going to be 180 degrees. Now, the number of degrees per item will be the total arc divided by the total minus 1. And that has to be converted to a double. So the start angle is going to be a double, starting out at the left at minus 180. Then the degrees will be the start angle plus the index multiplied by the degrees per item, and we'll need to convert the index into a double. And then we can return the degrees formed by that calculation. That's what ChatGPT gave me. So in the for each loop, we can use this function to calculate the required angle for the offset by calling the function at the index where the total is the alltabs.count. Now we'll need a CG float as a radius to span, so I'm just going to pick 100 as the radius for this span semicircle, and I can adjust that later if necessary. But before I forget, when we tap on a button, we want to collapse it again. So I'm going to toggle the isExpanded property here as well. Now we can use an offset for our buttons using the information that we have in the X and Y direction. If we are expanded in the X direction, I'll multiply the radius by the cosine of the angle in radians. Otherwise, it will be 0. And in the Y direction, we'll use the sine for 0. Now I also want this expansion to be animated whenever isExpanded changes. So I can create an animation over that value. So we'll choose a spring animation for the isExpanded value. And now, as I toggle, I tap on that button, I see the buttons expand nicely out around the center button. And if I tap on one, the frontmost one changes and the semicircle collapses with a nice spring animation. So to use this then, I can simply return to the Start Tab view, and I'll replace my custom tab bar with this semicircle one. Nice, that works. Now, if you're still with me, I want to quickly create another one modeled after that semicircular one, so it won't take me very long. Inside the CustomTabBars folder, I want to create a new SwiftUI file, and I'm going to call it Vertical Reveal TabBar. This is going to be a tab bar that when I click on it, the background buttons are going to flare up to the top rather than in a semicircle. So I'm going to return to the SemiCircular TabBar view, and I'm going to copy the entire contents of that view. And then I'm going to return to the Vertical Reveal TabBar and then replace the view with what I have on the clipboard. And then I can fix the preview by getting that previewable state property. So let's go back up now, and I'm going to remove the angle for tab button function. And I'm going to replace it with a new function called Y offset for button with the same parameters at the index and for a total. But I'm going to return a CG float, which will be the offset. And this will represent the Y index when we tap on the frontmost button. So I'm going to return a -50 times the index and subtract 60. And make sure you turn the multiplication into a CG float. So back in the for each loop then, we can remove the angle and the radius. And then replace that with a Y offset variable as determined by calling that function at the index with the all tabs total. Well, the offset then is only in the Y direction, so we can remove the X offset and it'll stay at 0. Then the Y offset, if it's expanded, is that calculated Y offset. Otherwise, it's 0. And now you can see in the preview that it expands and collapses and sets the front icon to the selected tab. That was pretty simple. So let's try this out in our view. So back in the Start Tab view, I'm going to replace the Circular Tab bar with the Vertical Reveal Tab bar, where the selected tab is then bound to the router's selected tab. And that places it in the center, but I want it off to the right. So I'm going to apply a frame, and I'll set the max width to infinity with an alignment of trailing. Then I'm going to add some padding on the trailing side to pull it back from the trailing edge. As I test now, it's working as expected. And of course, we could test any of these on the iPad, so let me switch to that right now. And I'm also going to set it to landscape mode. So we have 6 tabs, and everything is working as designed. Now, I'm really excited about the possibilities here, and I look forward to hearing from you if you design your own custom tab bars. I hope you found that this tutorial has been helpful, and you'll be able to use this in some of your projects going forward. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment. You can subscribe to my channel to get notifications of new videos, and remember that you can also download my YouTube channel listing app for free and quick access to all of my 350 plus YouTube videos. A link's in the description. And also remember, I have a full SwiftUI course available on my Teachable site where you learn how to build a fun multi-targeted app.